to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Listening to the podcast is only going to get you so far. Why not take your game to the next level? Check out Power Producer Basecamp on killingcommercial.com today.
Tactical skills that'll help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Want to have the sweet swag that we send out from the Power Producers podcast for your clients and employees? Check out policyt.com today.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Want to create an online presence but don't know how to start? Check out crushingcontent.com. It's done for you, so all you have to do is show up.
This is Power Producers Shop Talk, production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. Today's guest is no stranger to the podcast. He's probably been on nearly as many episodes as I have at this point, it seems like. But we have him back regularly because he is probably one of the top, if not the top resources for workers' compensation information nationwide. I'm talking about Kevin Ring, who's the lead analyst at the Institute for Work Comp Professionals in Asheville, North Carolina, and part of the brains behind those letters that are behind my name. He's the guy that I go to learn from, and I would highly encourage you to check him out and do the same. But we're going to do a series of shop talks, starting with this one. Just some quick blurbs, 10, 15, 20 minutes on different workers' compensation topics that you can easily digest and put into your game almost immediately. So before we get started, I wanted to just have Kevin have a quick opportunity to introduce himself because his numbers continue to grow on the podcast. Some of you may not have gone back to listen from the very beginning and heard the other ones where he was on here before. So give them just a brief background, Kevin, as to who you are.
Thanks again for having me back. It's always great to talk to you. The Institute trains, certifies, and mentors independent agents in a workers' comp process that helps them write more business and get better results for their clients. That's a very, very simple statement. And the Certified Work Comp Advisor designation for producers. We also have a program for account managers, the people that make the magic happen in your agency, so they know that they know the process that you're out there implementing. And the big thing that we do with the folks we work with is that they have unlimited access to us, kind of like I think folks in your group have to you, that when you run into workers' comp questions you're not quite sure how to deal with. I mean, just, as I was preparing for the podcast today, I've got a couple emails waiting for me about, who has to buy workers' comp in a given state and how that works. Another one with, a question, is somebody a subcontractor or an independent contractor? And we help you, navigate those things and get the answers that your clients need.
Good deal. So that's perfect segue because you're a great resource to so many of us. And truthfully, I mean, you probably thought that I was saying it tongue in cheek, but the reality is Kevin is the guy that I go to, that I ask questions that I don't know the answers to, and he hasn't let me down yet. So I got to try harder to find one he doesn't know. But, there's a lot of reasons why, in my opinion, leading with workers' comp as an agent is a good move, but I'm interested in hearing from you as to why you would say that it's a good move.
Yeah, I mean, so if we take a step back into kind of, insurance 101, how most people come into this industry, first of all, it's go after everything. And when you are a new producer, there is so much to learn. And what you need to learn is always changing. And with workers' comp, what you have from a policy perspective is dramatically simpler than probably any other line of insurance, right? The policy that you buy from insurance company A is going to be exactly the same as the policy you buy from insurance company B. And if somebody falls off a ladder, the benefits they receive are going to be the same no matter who you bought the insurance from. And so there's an argument, especially with young producers, that just starting with workers' comp, period, makes an awful lot of sense, and let other people in the agency team up with them to write the other pieces of the business. But even for more seasoned producers, why would you lead with the workers' compensation? Well, first of all, it starts with the fact that in workers' comp, more than any other type of insurance, you can monetize the results that your clients get from working with you. And an easy way to look at that is through the lens of the experience mod, right? If you go in, you sell a client today that has a 150 experience mod, well, in 5 years, when you've helped them improve their processes to the point that now they're at an 80 experience mod, well, you can draw a pretty straight line between where they were and where they are and how they're better off. And that is often difficult to do in insurance. You know, one of the great frustrations that probably every person who's ever sold insurance has had is having clients that don't really understand or appreciate the protection that they have because they've never had to use it, right? You know, you sell someone, you know, you sell them cyber insurance and they just get mad because they're having to, you know, write the check, but nobody's hacked their stuff. Now, when they get hacked, they're very happy to have it. But, you know, with workers' comp, because of the control that the employer has when they do the right things, you can, you know, really monetize the work that you've done and show that you turn your promises into performance. That's kind of the headline, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I was just talking to somebody the podcast before this, and literally what you just said is one of the things that we talked about. You know, people get irritated because they pay all this money in premium in and they never end up using the policy and they think that it's a ripoff. You know, that's not really how insurance works, because my rebuttal to that always is, okay, so you've paid 15 years worth of premium and you've never had a total loss or you've never filed a claim. But if you would have bought that same $600,000 house and a week later, one of your kids is playing with matches and lights it and the whole thing goes down, you would have had that covered by that exact same policy, but you wouldn't have paid a dime in. You know, so you can't complain when you've had the good fortune of not having to go through a claim. And I think there's a lot of issues around that thought process too, because even if you look, and I know we're going to talk about workers' comp, but even if you look at the roof epidemic, right, with all of the people that are going around and quote unquote inspecting roofs and then wanting to have them replaced at replacement cost on a home that's got a roof that's 19 years old, essentially at the end of its useful life. And now all of a sudden you get a brand new roof because some schlep shows up on a freaking Segway driving through your neighborhood, doing inspections for everybody, drumming up business. I mean, that's also not how it's supposed to work. Insurance isn't a savings account for you to use and make sure that you actually get a return on that investment. It's the contract of indemnity, period. The whole idea is to make you whole, or as close to whole as they possibly can, should the worst thing that could possibly happen to you happen to you. That's it. Like, if too many people think about it like everything else, you know, we're putting money in, so we got to take out. And I mean, that just perpetuates the problem, because then you end up with frivolous claims and everything else. And I don't think that workers' comp is altogether different in that respect. I mean, I don't think the business owners, by and large, are the ones saying, oh, no, go ahead, file a claim on workers' comp. I'm paying for it anyhow. But I mean, I think employees think that way. I think that they, realize, oh, well, I don't have good benefits, so I'll just go ahead and pretend like I was pulling a water heater off the back of the truck Monday morning when nobody's looking, and then I'll get my back strain that happened when I was moving my couch over the weekend fixed, and I don't have to come out of pocket any money for it. So a whole lot of it has to do with the fact that people they have a very misguided view of what insurance's role is and everything. I mean, we could even talk about this with regard to auto accidents on workers' comp. You know, one of the things that we face down here is a lot of the carriers don't want to give you more than about $100,000 in uninsured motorist coverage on your auto. because they don't want plaintiffs' attorneys coming back after that employer for somebody who was in a work-related injury. At the end of the day, workers' comp does exactly what I said. It's an indemnification thing. It's not for you to profit. It's for you to get back up to where you were or as close to it. And if you don't get that far, guess what? There are mechanisms built in terms of partial disability ratings and everything else that are going to try and do their best to at least give you some financial compensation for it. But it doesn't cover pain and suffering. It doesn't cover any of those other things. That's why they go to the policy for it, is they think that if you've got $1 million limit on well, we'll go over here and take care of the statutory stuff with workers' comp. But if you want the payday and you want your picture on the next billboard, let's go over to your policy and we'll file the claim there.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it is definitely a challenge with everything, related to insurance and what you're describing, specifically with attorneys. And this is kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about here, but it's worth noting a couple of things about that. First of all, it is, when I'm looking at an account with an advisor and you see a pretty substantial percentage of their injuries overall are litigated, it's almost always the result of one of two things, and maybe in combination. One is a culture issue with the employees. So you'll have somebody get hurt, they sue, and then they come back to work and they're like, look at this big fat check that I just got. And so then other people think, oh, well, if I tear up my shoulder, then maybe I can get, some of that sweet insurance money. The more common thing is a larger culture issue with the employer, right? So if you work in a job and you hate your job and you feel like your boss hates you, then it's very easy to get into a mindset of like, well, what does it matter to me? I'm not, I don't really, care about this employer, so I'm just going to try and take them for all they're worth. And what you can help an employer do, if they want to do it. Some employers just hate their employees and they treat them as interchangeable pieces, and those folks are never going to be good clients. But you can help them, build a process, help train their employees in that process to help the employee understand that workers' comp is there to take care of them when they get hurt at work, but it's not there to be taken advantage of just to get some free time off or something like that.
If you're listening to this as a newer producer and you're trying to figure out where your way is how you're gonna lead, what you're gonna, what you're ultimately gonna prospect and everything, my take on why you want to lead with workers' comp is you can't get any more data on any other line of coverage up front from public domain than you can from workers' comp. You're not going to get the same information on GL. You're not going to get the same information on auto. You can get some things from some of the tools that are out there on cyber. But at the end of the day, like the main reason why I like to lead with workers' comp is because Florida's got a database. NCCI's got experience mods. I can piece together what the best opportunities for me are up front so that when I go out to hunt, my hit ratio is much higher than just putting together a list of accounts to call on blindly. A lot of people would say workers' comp's great to lead with because everybody has to have it. It's statutorily required. And while that's true largely in most cases, it doesn't mean every company out there has to have it based on what the state says, or you could be in Texas where they don't have to have it at all. But, you can get so much data up front to be able to go in and have success in prospecting that I just want to stack the deck in my favor. I mean, it's not that I don't know the other lines. It's just easier for me to get data and open up opportunities by leading with comp.
Oh, absolutely. And certainly I expect that pretty much everybody listening to this is looking to work with accounts that are required to have workers' comp, and it helps you all of that data helps you kind of filter your list, right? So you go, however you build a list of, a couple hundred different businesses you might like to call on, then you can go, in some states, you can just like in Pennsylvania, you can go to the Pennsylvania Bureau's website, search for any company and see their experience mod. For that matter, you can look, say, for all the plumbers in your county. And we've had agents who have done marketing campaigns up there where it's like, hey, Bob's Plumbing, 42 plumbers in our area. Your mod is the 130th worst of the group. You can get their mod score from NCCI for a few bucks. You can't get the worksheet without authorization. And there's just so much information out there to help you identify people that might be good prospects, but then to personalize that marketing to them. And part of the communication, especially with folks that are maybe a little bit more in distress, is, workers' comp, just like benefits, just like taxes, is part of what it costs for them to have an employee. And when their workers' comp costs are higher than they could be, they are directly negatively impacting the profitability of their business. And it's a way that you can help them not just have a more successful insurance program, but to actually have a more productive and profitable business when they have a successful workers' comp program.
You know what? I actually used that line and closed an account, a pretty good sized service contractor, because we had gone in and done an experience mod audit. Mod was out of control. Like, I don't even remember what it was at this point, but I want to say it was north of 1.5. And I spent an hour breaking it down, walking them right down the line. Here's your mod, here's your minimum mod, here's the controllable, here's the things that are contributing to it. These are the team members that have had the most claims, might need to look into why they're so accident prone, all of the stuff that we would normally talk about when we're on an appointment. And I get done, and the guy looks at me across the table and he says, I need you to give me 5 reasons why I should consider moving my workers' comp over to you. And this guy would say, if we got him not even down to his minimum, we could have reasonably saved him $100,000 a year without batting an eye. Once we got to put some programs in place, there was no return to work, there was no pre-injury management, none of that stuff was there. And he had the audacity to look at me and say, I want you to give me 5 reasons why I should hire you. And I looked at him, I said, I just spent the last hour giving you 100,000 reasons why you should hire me. I said, but here's the one reason that you need to care about. You can either take this stuff seriously, improve what's going on right now, and actually address the problems. It's going to help your culture, but more importantly, it's going to give you market share, because right now, the money you're pissing away on overspending on your workers' comp could be redirected to offering better benefits, higher wages, and better pricing for your product to your clients, but instead you're throwing it into workers' comp because you haven't taken it seriously. And I said, nobody else is going to come in here and tell you that you're hurting the growth of your business because of your mod being where it is. They're going to come in and tell you, oh, I have a carrier that'll write that. They may have to put a consent to rate on it, but we can get you terms, and they're going to walk out the door and leave you. That's how you got to where you are today. People don't take it seriously. And you know what? The average agent on the street doesn't do anything to help their cause either. I'll call it like I see it.
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly right, because both agents and employers have been trained in large part is comp, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, I frequently mention that when I got my insurance license, I don't know however many decades ago that was now, booked a study, and like 20 of it was about workers' comp. There was 300 pages of homeowners forms, really basic stuff about workers' compensation.
Absolutely. So what else do we want to tell them about leading with comp before we wrap this one up?
Well, the last piece is that, it's, more than likely, you have some form of access to the insurance company most of your prospects are with. And it allows you to be a takeover agent. And when you think about specifically leading with the workers' comp and trying to take it over, just the workers' comp, it can sometimes get people past the uncomfortable feeling they have of firing their current agent. You don't have to take all of your insurance away from your brother-in-law or the guy you play golf with every Saturday. I just want to take over the workers' comp, and we'll handle that. And then you can wait until you get those results that we were talking about, and then they'll probably beg you to take the rest of it when they realize, and I mean, this is something I've heard you say, that they're, maybe just, paying somebody to be their friend.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. The other thing I like about it is if you need to learn something and you need to learn how to sell without solely selling on the placement of a policy, this is a great place to learn that skill set. And that skill set will transfer to everything else once you learn to think differently about your approach. I mean, that's the other angle that I always tell people, because, when we go in and talk to somebody at the point of sale, it's very rarely about, oh no, I went out and got you a quote and it's, $30,000 cheaper. I'll tell you right now, we actually had a situation here a couple times, and Micah Salas posted about this on LinkedIn this week, and I commented on it. The delta on auto insurance quotes for commercial fleets that are, 5 to 15 vehicles is all over the board. I mean, it's crazy. We can literally go out right now and open the door on marketing drops just saying, hey, we'd love to quote your auto. We're getting some really good rates. And I know your industry's getting crushed right now. And that's it. Like, that's the most old school, non-value driven way to prospect, but it's the way to open the door. Guess what? We're having a hard time explaining to people why some of these quotes are coming back $10, $15, $20,000 less than what they already have. Even showing them, here's the 5 quotes we got. Some of them are more than what you're paying. Some of them are around what you're paying. This one's less. This carrier just really wants to write in this zip code, whatever it is. And so, it bears to the fact that selling on price, although it's worked for a lot of people for a long time, it's also not always that easy. So the less that we can focus on that, and the more we can focus on the other things that we know how to do and that we can help them with, the better off we are and the more business we're going to close.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some indications that that we might be near the end of the perpetual rate decreases that we've seen in comp over the last decade. I just got an email shortly before we started that California is likely going to have a fairly substantial proposed increase for 2026, and they're being the a country in and of itself, really, they are often a bellwether for those things changing. So stay tuned on that.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've given them enough reasons why they should consider leading. We're going to get into the next episode here. We'll catch you guys next week. See ya.